That looks
Okay.
perfect now.
Okay. So my name is Sridhar. I am in the product management team of Nonstop Enterprise Division of HPE. Today, I'll be taking you through three important layers of the software stack in Nonstop, namely middleware, languages, and database. So let's start. So this is how the agenda looks like. I have divided the presentation into three sections: the lavender colored middleware, blue colored languages and development environment, and an orange colored database. So here on the right-hand top corner, let me invoke my pointer, 1 minute. Okay, so here on the top corner, we have the application stack, the whole application stack shown in a small picture. So we went through all the white colored layers when Prashant talked to us on the 7th, Tuesday. So today we will see the colored layers. And let me move on. I have a lot of slides to cover and a lot of information to give. So I would appreciate if you can excuse me that I will answer the questions at the end. I'll not stop in the middle. Okay, let's start with the lavender colored middleware layer. So the middleware vision and mission. So I thought, let me put this up first so that when we go to the future section, I can understand what we have done in the recent past. You can understand why we did something that we had done or we are going to do. So make an application development easy and straightforward. So make application development on Nonstop as easy as possible, quick, and even those not familiar with the Nonstop should be able to create an application. But at the same time, just by making it easy and quick and modern, we don't want to compromise on the 4 decades of availability, scalability, and data integrity fundamentals of the Nonstop system. And we want to offer the fundamentals out of the box to the application developers. And by doing all this, we want to maintain Nonstop as a preferred platform. So how do we achieve this vision? So these are the steps listed under the mission that we are trying to do now. So we are trying to hide the platform and OS specificities. Specificities is not an English word actually, but I'm taking the liberty to use it here. So we all know that the OS and the lower layers of Nonstop are different from those on the other platforms. So we want to hide them and offer easy and standard API so that application developers do not have any problem in understanding the specific things of Nonstop. And we don't want to make we don't want to make any assumption about app developers' Nonstop knowledge. And even a fresh college grad who comes out with just C, C++, Java, or most probably Python nowadays, should be able to develop on and for Nonstop. And we all have seen the past 25 years how the open source has proliferated. Actually, it has humongously exploded, I should say. And so we go through them and then we try to select some products from the open source and offer them in a ready to use state on the Nonstop for the application developers to use. And we constantly try to update ourselves with the new programming paradigms and architecture, design frameworks, etc. And also offer modern interfaces and protocols because Nonstop is not isolated and it's connecting to the World Wide Web and everywhere. So protocols and interfaces are very important. And of course, we provide all help from multiple departments of HPE in order to enable our customers and partners to extract maximum out of the Nonstop platform. So basically what I lectured so far on the left-hand side is shown on the right-hand side diagram. So we want to offer integrated systems, easily scale out, scalability without the application developer having to do anything. Same thing with availability fundamental, easy to set up and bring up and integrate and use and offer the networking protocols and interfaces as much as possible, and use this toolkit in order to hide the platform-specific things of Nonstop. Let me go on next. So this is called a cross-sectional view of Nonstop middleware. When I made it, I think about 3-4 years back. What I mean is you take a Nonstop box, assume it's a cubicle box, and then you just make a vertical cut across that box and you will see all the stuff software layered on top of the other in Nonstop. So we went through the OS and all that in the other thing. And then Nonstop TSMP and Nonstop TMF, these are the brain and backbone we all know that provides availability, linear scalability, and transactional integrity for all the applications of the data. And though I'm showing it along with the OS, TSMP and TMF are actually middleware layers. We consider them as middleware layers, but we are not going to talk about them today. And then once you have this basic backbone, the fundamentals are existing, then you mount standards-based JVM platform. And of course, we have also the standards-based C++ and C runtime environments, etc. So, and then you have all these rectangles that I'm showing here with the green outline and the deep red outline, they are all middleware. Why red and green? Because all the green colored boxes have something to do with Java. Maybe they are directly existing on the JVM, or maybe an application which is deployed into an app server like NSASJ, or maybe a servlet container, etc., etc. But they all have something to do with Java. Whereas the deep red color is a non-Java middleware, and maybe they are COBOL, maybe they are C, C++, whatever. Okay. So three of those middleware products, just for example, I'm showing here the in-memory cache, which allows you to share data between the applications, even shared nothing architecture of Nonstop, but we are not losing the fundamentals because of sharing. That's important. And then we'll talk about this. And then we have the HTTP server, the new web server, and the old ITP web server. These are all middleware products. And once we have this, the applications can be developed on any of the for any of the industry verticals. So again, the lavender color for the middleware. And I'm also showing some 4 boxes here on the right-hand side, just for the completeness of this presentation. They are not middleware. The blue color things, we know that they belong to the languages, and the orange color belongs to the database domain. So in this presentation now, all the shaded boxes. So now you saw some animation coming up with some purple or lavender and blue color and orange color animations filled up. So these are the boxes that we're going to talk about. We'll talk about API gateway, we'll talk about Java, we'll talk about the HTTP server, and this new one called NSFTI, and also on the language and the database. Okay. So now the API Gateway. API Gateway is an important product that we released in the 2106 in last June, that is this year, June, as 1.0. And we will be releasing this version called 1.1 shortly. In the very near future, when this RVU called LXYUV goes out, you will get API Gateway 1.1 version. I'm not fixing any numbers for X, Y, U, and V because the RVU is not yet released. Okay, what is API Gateway? So API Gateway is the lavender colored square you see in the middle. So it exposes a variety of protocols and interfaces to the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, it faces a non-stop interior, and you have applications, maybe a microservice, maybe a macro service running on the non-stop system. And you have the databases, SQLMX and Nscribe records, etc. So all these things on the non-stop are offered to the people on the left-hand side. They are called clients. So a client sends a request, it may use an HTTPS protocol and land on the API gateway. API gateway routes it to some microservice, gets back the response, and then gives it back to the client. So this is how it works. This is called the gateway mode. There's another mode in which API gateway can work, is called proxy mode. In proxy mode, actually, a client resides on the non-stop and a web service exists outside. Maybe a web service like Google Maps, or maybe a service that's a private party is running, to which this client wants to access, a non-stop client. So that goes in this direction, the reverse direction, and that's called the proxy mode. We support both in our API gateway. We'll see the next slide. And so in addition, the API gateway actually puts a gate, applies security. It doesn't allow anybody. It allows only people who are authenticated and authorized. And it publishes API docs to these clients so that they can quickly make up an application using these docs, and then send requests and receive responses. And then it also applies metering monitoring, maybe for monitoring for security purpose, probably, or logging purpose, metering for charging purpose. So it is a single point of entry for all the services that are running on the non-stop. And I already talked about interfaces and protocols, and it provides a plugin architecture. I'll talk about it in the next slide. Okay, and at the same time, it should exhibit uncommon advantages of scalability, availability, and transaction integrity. So when you deploy API Gateway, you get it out of the box. You don't have to do anything with API Gateway for that. So this is about our API Gateway, what we are doing in version 1.1, what we'll be releasing shortly. So it supports those functionalities I showed in the other previous slide, security, rate limiting. I'll talk about this in a moment, the canary release, API docs, and all that. And it, of course, provides uncommon advantages. So we give the common features and provide uncommon advantages. So what are the features that we are giving? We support the REST-based protocol now, REST protocol on HTTP and HTTPS with the JSON formatted data towards the outside, right? Towards the people on the left-hand side in the previous slide, or I can put it here. And then DDL and Java objects are supported on the right-hand side, that is within the non-stop here, and paths and mode of communication for IPC between the API gateway and applications. And in between, before it gets a request and passes on to the application, it does data validation and translation. It does routing between the services. Like you get, let's say you have 4 interfaces, a green, sort of cyan, black, orange, and proper green here. Requests keep falling on them, and then API gateway routes them to a green application, the second green application, and probably an orange application. So dynamically, it keeps routing between these applications as requests arrive. Metering monitoring, I talked about it for charging purpose, probably security. And here is where I will talk about canary release. So canary release is very important for any complex software to be rolled out. So dynamic routing actually plays an important there. So here I showed canary release here. What it means is, assume an application that's running with version 1. Now the application has been enhanced, so you have the version 2 here. So version 2 comes in, and so what we can do is to replace version 1 with version 2. And then you realize version 2 is causing a disastrous bug. So it brings down all the services. So you don't want to get into that situation. So what they do is, let's say 100 people on the left-hand side were using this application version 1. So instead of migrating all the people, they take 10% of those people and then make the application version 1 and version 2 run in parallel on the nonstop, and then they route 10% of the people to the second version, that's application version 2. 90% of the people are still happy with application 1. Then you are operated like that for some time and no problems occurred, you are happy. So move 25%, then 50, probably 70, 80, and then finally you move the entire 100% gang into the application version 2 and then remove application version 1. So this methodology is called canary releases. And so the dynamic routing actually plays an important part here. Oh, I'm searching for that mouse here. Okay, it plays an important part here. So what happens is, this helps a lot. And the dynamic routing, what happens is, in the request that the client sends, probably the I said 100 people, right? So the identifier of the requester or subscriber can be embedded in the HTTP header. Based on that, the routing can take place to different versions of the application. So this is canary release, and we support all that. And I don't want to go through this again. Uncommon advantages are always assumed for nonstop. Okay, that's API gateway. Let me move on to the new product called the nonstop fault tolerant interface. We released it again first in 2021, L2106 RVO in June, abbreviated to be NSFTI. What is it exactly? It's actually the nonstop process pair out of the box. So we all have heard about nonstop process pair. Many of us have used it also. It's been there from beginning. It embeds, or it bestows high availability to nonstop applications, right? So basically, there's a primary application instance and backup. They run sync to. They are both of them are syncing with each other. And in case primary goes down, backup picks up and then runs. And the client that was using this application does not know that something has happened. Something bad has happened. So that's nonstop process pair. So this NSFTI is nothing but a library that has a set of C++ classes, okay, which actually implement all the things that a person has to do in order to implement nonstop process pair concept. So an application writer takes this NSFTI and builds application with this library. And then when he deploys it, when the person deploys it, the library takes care of the entire NSPP functionality. So when the application is coming up, it brings up a backup, and then the library keeps syncing the data between the primary and the backup. And in case something disastrous happens and the primary goes down, then the OS gives an indication to the backup that the primary has gone down, backup starts, the erstwhile or the existing backup starts a new backup, and it takes over the role of primary. So the client does not know, it's nothing but exactly the NSPP. Only thing is, it just build your application with this library instead of you coding it. Whatever the necessary things that needed to be done for making the application as NSPP. So when I talked about it, I had given a lecture on middleware in the TBC 2021 in October. So when I talked about it, I actually I recorded and sent so I could watch what people were commenting on the sidelines. So when it was being played out in live. So people were very impressed by that. And a lot of people said they want to try immediately, they wanted to go back and try. So probably people here also can try this out, and this is available from L2106. Okay, now nonstop manageability framework 1.1, again an L2106 new product, abbreviated to be NSMF, and there's no 1.0. We are straight away going with 1.1 for some weird reason. Okay, so NSMF, what is it? As the name suggests, it's a framework and it operates in the DevOps domain. So modern DevOps methodology concepts for deployment, configuration, and update of HPE supplied nonstop products. So for example, in the cross-sectional view that I showed, a lot of rectangles were there, which were actually products supplied by HPE to our customers, right? So those products see continuous upgrades or versions or TCFs, whatever you call them, and customers are supposed to take those new things and install and deploy and integrate them and bring up the new versions, etc. Right? So that work is going to be simplified by this NSMF framework. So we are going to give simple architecture and simple framework for implementing that. So and that's about nonstop products. Okay, so it is the concept is nothing but a realization of infrastructure as a code idea. What does it mean? For any application to run, we know that hardware and software are necessary and they have to be configured, set up in a particular way for the application to come and run, right? So this infrastructure as a code idea models the hardware and software requirements in terms of code. So you convert that into a model which is in terms of code, and when the code is running, when the code completes is running, magically the hardware and software setup comes up and the application is ready to run. So that's what, in a conceptual level, that's what it means. And we have NSMF. I'll show you the next slide how we have implemented it. NSMF 1.1 is a combination of two software, and we will see them in the next slide. So in this slide, I'll draw your attention to the right-hand side picture. So we have a Linux system, and then we have a non-stop. Inside the non-stop, we have this product, TSMP, the backbone for us, so TSMP. And the TSMP actually contains two subsystems called PDMI and ACS, Pathway Domain Management Interface, and Application Cluster Services. So a lot of configuration parameters have to be programmed for bringing up PDMI and ACS and all that. So what we have done is, there is a plugin which is called NSMPT, right? Non-stop manageability plugin for TSMP. So this plugin runs here on the non-stop. It's made up of Python script. It's written in Python 3, and it actually wraps all the APIs that actually are needed. The command line interfaces, what they call SPI. They have this commands like install, deploy, start, stop, and all that, service programming interface. All those commands are wrapped up in a Python script, and it exposes easy APIs outside. So this Python program runs as NSMPT on the non-stop, and then it takes its commands from this NSMF 1.1 that's deployed in the Linux system. So the NSMF 1.1 is nothing but a definition of roles, modules, and playbooks, which are actually terminologies of this Ansible product. Ansible is a product made for deployment and installation, deployment, and configuration of software. So we have using that Ansible mechanism in the Linux system, and we have written playbook. The playbook actually tells what to be done, how to configure this PDMI and ACS that are going to be run on the non-stop. So that playbook is pushed into the non-stop, and NSMPT receives it and understands that, and it has its own configuration files, etc. So it uses them and then executes this commands, install, deploy, etc., and then brings up the PDMI and ACS. So this is an example product which we've taken up in 1.1, and we have implemented it. So when this goes out, the next RVO is bringing it out. When this goes out, and when a new TSMP release is made, people can use this playbook, and then TSMP gets installed magically. So that's how it is. And we also have another thing implemented in this 1.1, which we are not advertising much because we just did it as a POC within our department. So NSJSP and ITP web server. So let's say you're writing a servlet program in Java. You want to deploy in NSJSP. So first of all, NSJSP has to exist, configured, ready to receive the servlet. And then NSJSP's front end is ITP web server. So you have to install that and bring it up and integrate NSJSP and ITP web server. So these functionalities I just listed out, all of them are done in a playbook. So that's another thing we have, but we are announcing TSMP because this is a tested, tried, and everything has been done, QA'd, and everything has been done for TSMP. Whereas this, we are actually, we have given to some customers who showed interest in DevOps. We had done some DevOps lectures last year. So we showed this, how the DevOps principle works, and they had showed some interest. So as a proof of concept, we gave this the NSJSP and ITP web server in those customers' test systems to run and test. So they were quite happy. Okay, I think I'm losing time. Next product we'll take up is a non-stop HTTP server 2.4 update 1, and it was released last year as 2.4, server 2.4, and this year 2106 actually brought update 1. So there's one slide I wanted to show where I try to capture all the features of this HTTP, important features, but a lot of features are there. And I had done a 1-hour call, 1-hour tech talk in August 2020 on just NSHTTP web server. So those slides are there. Anybody email me and I can send those slides. Okay, so what is it? It's a deep port of Apache HTTP web server, and this is going to be our go forward web server replacing the ITP web server. ITP web server has been our cause for 25 years or more, and we want to migrate to HTTP server. We want all the people to migrate to HTTP server. What are the features? HTTP 1 and 1.1 are available now. WebSockets is an enhancement to HTTP. HTTP typically works as a client wants something, server is bound to give. Right? There's no situation in HTTP where a server wants to send something to the client or ask client something. No. So WebSocket solved that problem. WebSocket allows the server to push something to the client, and by pushing, it can ask something from the client also. So here I'm showing what you call message sequence diagram here. So a client connects first to the server, and then it asks for an upgrade to WebSocket. Let's say a stock market client, and then it wants to send now and then some stock market related data. Server is running in the stock market. Sorry, server is running in the stock market, and I want to see the stock market data. Server is able to, should be able to push. So the client asks it to be upgraded to WebSocket protocol, and server accepts it. And then unilaterally, the server actually sends 3 messages containing some data. And after the client has something else, and it sends a message, and finally they close and disconnect. Okay, so this pink, the lavender colored line. Yeah,
sorry to interrupt. You are scheduled for another half an hour, you know.
Yeah, another half an hour is there, right? Yeah, I know.
Okay,
I think
so
I can finish. Okay, so okay,
no need to be
reduce that.
So rushed, I would hope. Yeah.
Okay. So I think I can manage. Yeah, okay. So that's a WebSocket protocol, and that's supported in this 1.1 release. Parkway CGI. So a lot of people use Parkway CGI based applications as server classes sitting behind ITP web server. So that ITP web server can be removed, and seamlessly you can bring those applications to sit behind nonstop HTTP server, and they just start working. So that we have proven, and that's again we released it in 1.1 when it comes in L2106. And security, it supports data in motion 1.3, 1.2, SHA 256, 384 hashing algorithms are supported, and it's also integrated with Safeguard for administration purpose, authentication, authorization, etc. And another very good feature of NSHTTP is virtual hosts. So you use one network port, whatever the TCP/IP socket and all that, but you can run 4 websites. Let's say domain 1, domain 2, domain 2 here, domain 3 here, and domain 4 here, based on the same NSHTTP instance, right? You install one NSHTTP and run 4 websites on that. So that's possible. And the client cert authentication is another very important feature, very good feature in the sense, see when the client actually connects to HTTP, right? Like in the what you call that the message sequence diagram I'm showing, the HTTP protocol, HTTPS protocol, exchanges certificates and exchange keys and all that, and they satisfy each other, they are good, and then they proceed. So that's an authentication usually that takes place. In addition, if you enable this client cert authentication, HTTP server can pass on the certificate to the backend application, which is sitting behind the web server. Backend application, let's say I'm again assuming a servlet deployed in an NSJSP container. So that servlet application is a business application. Probably it has more intelligence in order to evaluate the certificate. So then it can take a decision and inform the HTTP server whether that's accepted or not. And then HTTP server will respond to the client what to, deny or accept the client's request. So this is client certificate authentication that's enabled in 1.1 version. And remember, this normally the authentication authorization done by this HTTP server is at the transport layer, right? HTTP is a transport layer protocol, but client certificate authentication actually takes place at the OSI model layer 7 application layer. So that's a very important feature that we're rolling out in 1.1. Okay, and I'll also highlight here on the left-hand side, closed loop feedback system. It's a near linear horizontal scaling is enabled. There's a feedback loop that continuously works, and that ensures that the HTTP server is scaling out and scaling in as required. And it's continuously available because HTTP server is a TSMP server class. And why did we, just a bit about why Apache and why not something else? Apache is one of the most popular, actually one of the 2 most popular, I should say. 25% of all websites run on Apache, which is second to the web server called Nginx, which is actually having a 29% of all websites it handles. But Apache scores on another point. Apache actually runs 100% of the most busiest websites in the world. Okay. It's a large and very active community. This is the 26th year of operation of Apache Web Server in the world, and continuously enhanced and updated still. Very active community. And the Apache Web Server is highly customizable and dynamically loadable. What they have done is they have split into the functionalities into pluggable modules. For example, this client certificate authentication, that's a pluggable module. People who don't want it do not have to plug it when they run the Apache HTTP Web Server. So we have in our user guide of our server, we have listed all those modules that we are supporting, tested in the present release, and those that are coming in the future, as of now, which are not supported. So that list is big. You can take a look at it in the user guide. So HTTP Web Server, this is. Okay, let's go into the Java domain now, from the deep red to the green outlined boxes now. So first released, NSJ 11 was released first in L2005 last year, and then we have released update 1 in L2106. I'm going to talk about only one feature in the Java that we released in 2106. The important feature is Java Flight Recorder, which is JFR. Actually, it continuously collects data about where your program is spending its time, the profiles, garbage collection info, and then keeps recording them. And that data is beautiful. People say if you go to the web and just do some research on JFR, it's an extremely useful tool for profiling your application and troubleshoot your performance related problems, which are deep down hidden in this thing. Okay. So previously, for past 4-5 years, I've been getting requests from the people who are using Java saying, can Nonstop give me a JFR? But we were not able to because it was previously a separately purchasable item available only with Oracle. People who wanted it had to go to Oracle and buy it. But now from Java Standard Edition 11, Oracle opened it up and then they are packaging it within the JVM itself. So we are able to ship it's along with our NSJ. The beautiful thing about JFR is it uses very little CPU cycles. So if you see the JFR website, they say they don't use more than 1% of the whole CPU cycle that your application is utilizing. So it's a very useful tool. I think people will start using it very often. Okay. Apart from the two more features are there good, but I cannot talk about them because we don't have time. Perf attach actually helps you to analyze how the application is using the memory. Its heap memory, how it's using, because a lot of details are provided there. And native memory tracking is also tracking the memory, but in this case, actually how the JVM is using the memory, not the application heap. Okay, again, the middleware talk that I did in TBC has a lot of details. Okay, futures now. So I talked about what we released newly, and let's go to the futures. Exciting product coming, new product in the Nonstop showcase, two of them. I'll show the right-hand side later. The first one is Lightwave Server. It is from our long-term partner, New Wave. They've been with us for a long time. And then you remember they were supplying protocol adapters for SOAP protocol earlier. And then they branched out to, they upgraded themselves to REST. So they are also supplying this Lightwave Server from their own system, REST protocol with the JSON formatted data. And similar to API Gateway, it rests on the Nonstop platform and it talks to clients on the outside. And it provides services from the Nonstop based applications. So this side is REST and this side is again path-send and the DDL objects, etc., the Nonstop specific objects. The second product is Lightwave Client. This also we are offering. These two products are going to be offered from our sales book or price book, as I call HP price book, and they are going to be available in a very near future. I cannot tell any time actually for the futures, unfortunately, but I'll say near future. So this is a client, this is a reverse. Client is residing on the Nonstop using web services on the outside. Same REST and JSON protocol adaptation between the Nonstop and the external web-based world. So these are going to be available shortly. Okay, and futures middleware, the other products in middleware, I mean, and I'll take, as usual, the Nonstop API Gateway first. So we are working on these features. We are going to integrate with the Kafka bus, and people have asked about it. In fact, CMS people also have been asking about it from us. So Kafka integration is in our works. It's being done now. And then the security domain, we are going to improve the security by supporting multi-factor authentication authorization, MFA, and also HTTP token-based authorization, right? You go to an authentication server whose job is only to authenticate and authorize. The server provides a token. The token goes back to the client. Client attaches the token and makes a actual service request to the business service providing application. So the application, by virtue of receiving that good token, assumes the client has been authenticated and provides the service. So that we are going to support along with the MFA. And I'll again take these two together, service aggregation and microservices. So microservices has been going around for a few years now. It's been a hot topic. So you break down your functionality to as small piece as possible and call one piece as one microservice. And so the whole business flow can be disintegrated into 100 services, but the client doesn't see them. Client sees one big service. So in the case of microservices, what happens is a client sends one request, expects one response, but within the application domain, that is broken down into multiple services. The API Gateway gets a request, then it forwards that into multiple services like this, service 1, 2, 3, and all that. Service 1 gives a response, then API Gateway may have to send that response to service 2, get another response, service 3, get third response, and then somehow aggregate them, all of them, that word is there, aggregate them and then send back one response to the client. So this is in the works. We're going to support it in the future. And we are going to support integrating with the Grafana Labs. Grafana Labs, I see, is a very popular tool and a very powerful tool for performance monitoring and performance profiling of your applications. So you run those applications along with API Gateway and then attach to Grafana Labs and see how to troubleshoot the performance bottleneck. So these are the main features, apart from some scalability improvements, etc., that we always do for every release. So this is API Gateway. Next, we'll see HTTP server, again, the next important product for me. We are going to comply to HTTP 2 as of now 1.1, and then AES Intrinsic. This is an encryption decryption tool. What we are going to allow is application can directly access the hardware of the x86 chip by using this intrinsic APIs, where the decryption encryption algorithms, which are very mathematically intensive, will be transferred to the hardware directly without going through the higher level to lower level languages and etc. So that will come. And online upgrade, HTTP server is running. You want to upgrade it online using the pathway domain concept that we are going to support. Supporting quality of service field, the differentiated services code point field in the HTTP header, and the logical network partitioning, taking it one level above that multiple web services on the same node, I said. So taking it to another level. And this is an important thing that I've asked engineering people to work fast. A lot of people use ITP web services. Whoever is an NSJSP user have ITP web service there. So we have to migrate people from ITP web service to the NS HTTP server, and we are going to provide a tool to migrate easily. And then integration, SOAP 4, we have been supporting SOAP for some time. It is in mature status now and go to limited because SOAP protocol itself has been declining for over the past decade or so. But still, a lot of people, many people in the non-stop customer domain are using SOAP. So we want to integrate and provide SOAP, expose SOAP via the NS HTTP server. So NSJ, the Java continues, and then we are going to offer Java native access. As of now, so far in the NSJ domain, we are offering something called JNI, Java Native Interface, which helps an application running on Java to integrate or invoke APIs on the native platform, right? Platform native APIs. Java native access is a one more method. I hear that Java native access is much simpler, easier to use. So that's what we are going to offer shortly in the future. And the next Java release will be NSJ 17. 11 to 17 will jump because 11, 17, etc. are the long-term supported versions of NSJ or the Java. So that will come later. Sorry. TSMP, we are going to increase the TSMP capacity increase. We are going to do the number of server classes that you can deploy and use. That's going to be increased. And we are going to still increase the load balancing efficiency after node fails. So in a pathway domain, multiple nodes are there. If one node shuts down, what to do? You have to divert the traffic entirely to the remaining available nodes. So there are some drawbacks that we have now. We want to remove them and improve them. So that's the thing that we are working on for TSMP. That's going to be available shortly also. DevOps, as I talked about, I showed you NSM of 1.1, and we are also actually working on a generic infrastructure. So we wrote an NSMPT, right, that plugin tool for TSMP, right, and we are writing it for, let's say, NSASJ next. But then how about the customers' applications, right, our partners' applications? How will they manage? For that, we are actually aiming to provide an infrastructure with runtime components and tooling, and that will help the partners to deploy their applications easily. So that's in the works, but that's in a very starting stage. I cannot even talk about any timeline, possible timeline at all for that, but we are going to work on that. In-memory cache, our version number now is 4, whereas version 4.2 and the version running on the industry is 6 something. So we are going to upgrade it shortly. And along with it, we are going to offer much more scalability and availability improvements and more data types that you can store in the cache. And of course, availability, it already provides by being an NSPP, non-stop process pair, but we still want to improve it. And so this is a very important product for us because it actually shatters the notion that if you share something, then you are bound to fail. So non-stop used to be called like shared nothing architecture, and so it is very rugged. But this enables you share something, but still you are rugged. So this is an important product. And then this is the last animation I'll do on this slide. At the bottom, you are seeing version upgrades and feature additions for our NSASJ or NSASJ application server, which is based on JBoss. The community is now called Wildfly. We are now on version 10. We are going to jump to 17. And NSMQ, our message queue for the Java-based applications, we wound down our old product called Nonstop JMS, and this is a replacement, and we are jumping from some version 5 point something to 5.16, 5.0, I think, to 5.16. It's a message broker. And NSJSP has been running for more than 14 years now. Servlet container, we are on 8.5, we will jump to 10. All these version upgrades, it's not simply version upgrade, but feature additions are there in them. I will talk about them later when we are close to the release. Okay, let's jump from middleware to the languages. And I have 20 more minutes, I think. Okay. So languages available on Nonstop. This is not a very important slide to talk about here. This just lists that languages that we are offering presently. It's a standard C11, C++ as the latest. And in the 2010 RVU, L2010 RVU, we rolled out these features called the 256 algorithm, and then AES encryption standard, intrinsics we offered, etc. And you all know that we are offering host-based and cross compilers for C, C++, and we are also offering Python 3.66 or the Nonstop X, and Python 2 is also there, but just being present. I don't want to talk about Python 2 because in January 2020, Python 2 was taken out of support by the community itself. So Python 3 is our language, and we are working currently on upgrading to the latest version after 3.6.6. And this is supposed to be, I mean, the most arguably the most popular language now, right? I mean, I hear at least in India, people who are coming out of the colleges know Python, and they don't want to talk about anything else. Okay, Java, we talked about, talked enough about Java. NSA 8 is available on Nonstop I, but then it's in mature state, and we are not going to add any more features, but it's going to go to mature and limited and bind down. Java 11 will be our, the NSA 11 will be our forward going. COBOL, we all know COBOL exists on Nonstop with host-based and PC-based cross compiler. PTEL also exists with both types of compilers. So this is just an introduction to the languages. And development environment, we know that we are offering this NSDE, and the latest release NSDE 11.0 on the 30th of November. I sent out an announcement for 11.0 because I wanted to coincide the version number 11 with the 11th month in November. So on the 30th of November, I sent out an announcement for it. And I'm going to just talk about NSDE as a whole. It supports both legacy and modern languages, COBOL, PTEL, all these languages you can edit and build using using NSDE. And with the cross compilers, actually, we can build the entire application within the Windows-based system itself using NSDE. And you don't need a Nonstop system unless you want to test. In fact, I keep getting requests from partners who want to buy only NSDE and cross compilers because they will use their Windows machine to do the building job. And then they have sometimes they use our ATC, the Advanced Technical Center Laboratory, to test it, or sometimes they have an agreement with their customers to who they are supplying this applications, and the customers allow them to use their test systems to run and debug their applications. So you can do that entire thing. And in case you want to test with the Nonstop by remotely connecting from the Windows system, it's highly protected by using the SSH protocol. And I'm not going to go into the details of NSDE 10 or NSDE 11 features here because they are there, but it will occupy time, and that's not very important here, I thought. So there is a big data sheet available for NSDE that I had written. It's about 14 pages. So that's available in the web, and you can search for that, the full name of NSDE, Nonstop Development Environment for Eclipse, and get a data sheet and list all the features right from the day one, what we are supporting. Okay, in the languages, we will go into futures. So we had a 50-minute session or 30-minute session by Randall yesterday. I think Randall Becker is from Nextbridge, our another long-term partner. Randall goes back way too long with the Nonstop, I think. So he is releasing a product called NSGit, and we are going to offer that via the HPE price book. What is it? It actually helps Nonstop specific Guardian files and inscribe records, etc., DDL data, etc., and converts them or adapts them to be stored in Git and recover from them. So it does Guardian to NSGit. NSGit does the necessary work, and then it pushes into Git, and you can retrieve from Git, get back all your Guardian data and file systems, etc. And then you can change your code, version merge, branch, whatever you want to do with your source code, you can do. So Randall had done a very good job of his talking about it yesterday. I don't want to mess it up, but my lecture. So these are the two slides I wanted to show about NSGit. I wanted to announce that we are going to availability of NSGit on Nonstop from HPE price book very shortly, probably very shortly. Right? I cannot say anything. So very shortly, we're going. You will see an announcement coming from me about NSGit's availability. Okay. So futures of language and development environment. So we are working on C++ 17 now, and we will offer it. That will be the next standards-based version of C++ on Nonstop. And we also thought about this, which I just highlighted, cross compilers on Nonstop, other platforms. So we have cross compilers on Windows now. So what about other platforms? Let's say Linux, for example. So we thought about it, and I had conducted a survey in the first quarter or the second quarter, I think overlapping the second quarter and first quarter of this year. And the feedback I got back from partners and customers, it went worldwide, the survey, but the feedback was very few people actually said, oh yeah, good cross compilers. If you offer it on Linux, I'd like it. But most of the people, most of the people said, no, I'm good with Windows. It's not necessary really. I'm happy with Windows and cross compilers, and post compilers on Nonstop are enough for me. So we are not taking any project out of this. We are not creating a project and working on that. I just wanted to tell you in this, platform, so that in this podium, so that if people are thinking about it, send me a mail, I'll keep collecting data. And if the business case matches, we would definitely offer it for customers later. And next is again the same case, new languages such as Go. It depends on customer interest. And we did a survey again. So I actually myself, I did a survey, I think 1 or 2 years back, and the feedback was, no, we are not thinking of Go or any other language. We are good with C++. Mostly we'll go to Python. Java is good for us. So that type of feedback is what I get, but I didn't get a feedback that Go is really required. But why did I then bring up this bullet in this presentation? Because you know that we are porting open source, right? NSHTTP server, NSJSP and all that. So this open source server, we take the code and then we change the code in our laboratory to meet the Nonstop specific requirements. So that's what we call the porting. When we're doing it, we're finding open source projects are increasingly more and more modules actually get submitted into the open source community in Go, the language Go. So that's why I'm raising this point and seeing the interest. So again, if you have any interest in it, or if you really want it, please send me a detailed email, and then I will take that up and try to draft a business case and talk to the engineering people of Nonstop and the management of Nonstop to see. Okay, but both of them, I'm just throwing a stone for me to get some feedback, and nothing committed here or nothing really promised, even though I'm listing them under the future slide. Okay, NSDE, every year we do a release. Next year you will see NSDE 12. We will do an, as usual, upgrade of Eclipse version, the C development developers tool, CDT and Xtext, etc. And they bring some features, and we also add some features. We have some RFEs lined up from the customers in NSDE that we are taking it up, and there are some improvement opportunities we have reported by our partners, so that also we are taking up. And that's about languages. Now I'm going to wade into a domain which I'm not very familiar with. I'm doing this on behalf of my colleague and good friend Roland Lemoine, who is in US, and he is a product manager for Nonstop database. So let me see how good a job I do in this. Okay, so this slide just compares SQLMX, that orange color rectangle you see on the right hand side, with traditional other relational databases and other non-relational NoSQL type of databases, and see what we offer and what they have, what they don't have especially. So evidently we have highlighted the strengths that we have SQLMX, that out of the box, again, everything is out of the box in Nonstop domain, right? Consistency, availability, scalability, and replication. You get it out of the box in SQLMX. Before, Roland used to show this slide, right? He had a bunch of 5 or 6 slides, and he builds up a case, and then he shows this table. He case by case, he analyzes between Oracle and Postgres or Hadoop or non-relational, etc., etc. And then he comes to the slide. But I don't have time and the knowledge level also. So I'm just showing this slide as an introduction to the database section, and then we'll go on to the features. And Cloud Spanner, the database from Google, it supports all these things we see. But then there's a point here, unlike Google Spanner, SQLMX can be implemented in your private cloud. Okay, more questions. If you have anything really important in this section, if you want to contest, or if you want to agree, if you want to get more details, anything, please shoot a mail to the email addresses I show at the end of the presentation. Okay, let's go into the database futures. So SQLMX 3.8 is a big release that's coming up, and I see mails going between engineering and Roland, etc., listing out the big features there in SQLMX 3.8. A massive work has been done. A lot of code lines have been written, lines of code, and a lot of features. Native blobs and clubs are available with all these data types and the interfaces that we can use to reach the Nanos database. And PLMX also has been enhanced with global types, arrays, cursors, attribute, enhanced before triggers, etc. More functions from PLMX are being offered, and so on and so forth. So a lot of this thing, Roland Lemoine is writing a big announcement for this release. When it gets released by the next RVU, again, LXYUV, we will be announcing it. So Roland Iban will be sending that announcement, sorry. And then another thing you see in this slide is the Nonstop Database Analyzer 1.3. And you see in this corner, the features that are coming. One feature I have slightly tried to embolden it is called machine learning based alerts. So NSD Analyzer keeps raising alerts. We are releasing two types of alert based mechanism, new type of alerts in this release. One is the threshold based alerts you see in the second bullet, and machine learning based alerts. So this is the first software in Nonstop which is implementing machine learning to take some decisions. So alerts keep coming, it keeps learning from the alerts, keep learning from the operator actions, probably what it did with the alert, etc. And then improves the message that is thrown to the human operator or administrator based on those learnings. So these are the new features in this release coming out with the LXY.UV. Okay, the new product from our partner Stream. So STRIIM, not Stream, but it is Stream, as if it is STREAM, the actual spelling. Why are those two I's instead of EA? So these two I's stand for intelligence, information, I should say first, information and then intelligence. It's the next generation transaction analysis platform. So you have a lot of things on the left-hand side, a lot of things on the right-hand side. So people are transporting data from this side to that side and vice versa. So as the data moves from one end to the other, Stream sits in between using an agent and server combination. It sits in between and then captures the data packets and keeps on analyzing them. Real-time analysis, and then it creates all these graphs and all these outputs on the fly, real-time data visualization and intelligence. So it not only captures the information while the data is flowing, it also derives intelligence out of that information. And that's why that STRIIM. Okay, so this is a product, very exciting product. Roland is a product manager for this, and he's going to make an announcement in the near future about it, and it'll be available via HP Price Book. Nonstop SQL Cloud Edition is a bundle of multiple products as shown in this orange color rectangles here: SQLMX, SQL Express for management, and the Nonstop Database Analyzer. Some of them go in the set, and some of them will be shipped as an independent product. And the whole bundle is with one product ID is offered as a single product. So this is for basically all the three products, their respective function is going to offer in one bundle. And then to access this cloud edition, they have developed an one-click API, Nonstop Database Services one-click API. So here, what happens is this SQLMX is residing in a, let's say, cloud, and then people can use the database for hire, right? They can utilize services and get billed or charged for it. So Joe here, for example, wants to create a DB called MyDB, and he wants 200 GB of data. So there are some simple APIs. They call it one-click API. Simple APIs are exposed through this self-service portal. And so if Joe logs in and say defines MyDB, and then he authenticates himself, and Joe then allocates the number of nodes required, the storage required, etc., and the port connections for the database. All those definitions he does in simple web form and submits it, and the database becomes ready. So on the back end, there are applications, on the DevOps methodology is used for bringing up those database, bringing up the database engine and the tables and etc., etc. And when it comes up, it's fault tolerance built in, it's scale out, all the Nonstop traditional fundamentals are applied for this. And it offers multi-tenancy. Joe, to use that ETF thing, what's it called? Alisa, somebody, right? Alia, and all those, anybody can use it, multi-tenancies. And you can install the database using a barebone x86 hardware-based Nonstop X, or using a virtual Nonstop, using a VMware hypervisor, etc. So it doesn't take a DBA to operate SQLMX. That's a punchline here at the bottom. It takes less DBAs to operate SQLMX. The user doesn't have to know. So now has come to the point where I finish my talk, and I hand over the baton to my colleague from Netherlands. He's Frans Jongma. He's in ATC, Advanced Technical Center, and he's going to take us through just 2 slides about how they have implemented this one-click API and the cloud edition. So Frans, I hope you're there. Can you take over?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I will move the slides, Frans, and you talk.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks, Frida. Thank you for your colorful presentation. And being from the Netherlands, I'm very happy to see that you chose the color orange for SQLMX. So what I want to briefly talk about quickly is this offer that we have in conjunction with the Nonstop Academy, which is called Try Before You Buy SQLMX. even many people may even have SQL MX on their system, but are not using it or not using it into the full because it may be a bit too complex for to provide it to their end users or to other departments within their company. So what we've done is, Sridhar talked about SQL MX DBS. It's been around for a few years already. And the whole idea of DBS is to provide database as a service. And you can only provide a database as a service if it is easy to use. And of course, we are used to the old Tandem fundamentals of easy to use, but and you've seen it in Sridhar's presentation. It's also part of the strategy now, the mission to make everything standard and easier. And this is exactly what we've done with DBS. And so we take the opportunity now to actually to play the service provider to proof of concepts to do this on a server hosted in Nonstop Academy. So so again, what was the purpose of DBS? It allows you to do consolidation of databases, multiple databases on a single system, multiple users or departments in a multi-tenant fashion. So databases will be strictly separated. You will have users that have access to one database, but not to another. Not just that you can't access that data, but you can't even see their metadata. The idea is DBS to be able to quickly provision and deprovision databases. And with quickly, I mean within a minute or 2 minutes. And if you think about it as a Nonstop system administrator, what do you need to do if somebody who only has MySQL experience, for example, asking you, hey, can I use your system for a while to create a database? You need to teach them, or you need to teach them Tackle, OSS, all that stuff. That's completely gone now. So the administrator only needs to be able to, it will create a new user based on an email, for example, and creates the database. From then onwards, this requester, this user, will be owner of that database. They will have complete access. They can add their own users to that database only. They can create tables. We already have set aside storage for them. So they can do everything that they need to do on their database. And then you have the normal tenants users who will be able to use the data, right? They can also they can download the drivers and examples. So the whole thing is already out there. Now, the separation is even from the system because the only APIs that people are using to access the database are JDBC, ODBC, or Python, which is also ODBC, right? Which means the only thing they need to do is talk SQL in whatever form. So they don't need to learn Tackle, FUP, OSS, or whatever, right? Tenants don't have even access to the system. So and that makes it, of course, a lot safer for, and the system administrator will sleep a lot better knowing that these people cannot even access the Nonstop system, right? And of course, the tenants can only connect to the databases that they have been granted access to, right? So can you go to the next slide, please? Because this is the offer that we have here. So if you think this is an idea for you, you can go to Nonstop Academy and fill in the form, and you will get 50 gigabytes of space. And actually, you will have a partition database, so it mimics multiple volumes, so you can see the parallelism. At this moment, we'll run SQL MX 3.7.2, but as soon as 3.8 comes out, we'll just upgrade that system to 3.8. And then you can even try out the latest APIs, right? So you go to this URL, which is listed here, fill in the form. From that URL, you also have links to a set of YouTube videos that I created over the past year and a half. And you can also replay the webinar that I gave in early October. That explains actually the current proof of concept user interface, which we're going to replace as well, because we have actually, this is the last word I'm going to say on this, on our future, we will actually integrate this with NSMF. It's done already. And we will integrate, for example, with frameworks like ServiceNow. So you can even use cloud management to operate your SQL MX databases. 3 o'clock my time. I think that's was all I wanted to say here, and thank you for your attention. So I can open it up for questions or give it back to our host, to John.
Might be worth checking the chat channel as well, just see if there's anything in there.
Oh, yeah, sure.
There was a question from Murray Chapman earlier for Sridhar.
Okay.
You've talked about two different products that support APIs. How should I choose between them?
Right. So if I'm audible, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, Murray, actually, let's talk about it. There are differences between the two products, API Gateway and the REST Lightwave Server and Lightwave Client. I was expecting this question from at least somebody that when I talked about them both, but we will talk about it. It's a lot of information that I have to share and discuss. So let's take it in another call. Murray, just send me an email. My email is being shown on the screen now. Just send me an email and we'll set up a call.
Okay, is that okay, Murray?
David
Or
Ward-
anybody else is interested as well?
People can send email and I'll probably bring them into a call and explain. Yeah. Somebody said he's going to be short. Oh, okay. Okay. So David Ward asks Sridhar, when do you think C++ 17 will be out? David, absolutely impossible for me to tell. Okay.
Sure.
HP prohibits us, and let's talk in private, and probably I can give some indication,
Yeah.
but I cannot say anything about it. HP.
Thanks,
has a
Sridhar. I
policy-
kind of figured you might not be able to answer, but I was curious.
David, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, one vote for Goland. I'll note it down. Randall, you and I have to talk. Keith Moore has been mailing me, and I've been too busy. Let's talk. Apart from NSKit, something else. Let's talk. Okay. And David Watt. Yes, I'll note them down. Thank you. And I have to show those next two slides quickly. I have to come back here. Okay. Yeah, this is additional non-stop information. You can see this slide later, but more importantly, I have to hold this for about 30 seconds, and then you're supposed to read it. Confidential disclosure agreement. You're not supposed to tell anybody about this.